Well, as a longtime law enforcement officer, Ed Hudson helped capture one of the most daring drug smuggling pilots of all time. How he went from pursuer to friend to spiritual mentor of that very same man is told in his incredible new book, As the Crow Flies, The Redemption of an International Drug Smuggler. Would you please welcome Ed Hudson? Ed, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
The story you write about is one you were personally involved in. Freddie Wayne Crow was a daring pilot who flew drugs from Central America back to the U.S., and he flew across the Gulf of Mexico so low, radar couldn't catch him.
Yes, sir. It's so low that the waves would cause the sea spray to have salt collect on the windshield.
I mean, that's nuts to fly that kind of...
For 200 miles in a stretch.
Wow.
Yes.
You were with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement assigned to try to capture this guy who was smuggling drugs, right?
At the time, I worked at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, and I was working narcotics. And I was called in just before Freddie's arrest, and because I'd worked the area that Freddie lived, and I knew a little bit about the people involved in the conspiracy. Yes, sir.
For a long time, you didn't know who he was, his name, or they called him Rambo.
Rambo. That's how he was known in the organization, because he didn't want to know anybody.
Yeah.
He didn't want them to know him, because as people get knocked off, they begin to start talking, and he didn't want anybody to know Freddie Crow was involved. So he would dress up in camouflage and paint his face in camouflage and try to hide his identity, and it worked, because they didn't know who he was, so they gave him the nickname Rambo, and that's how he was indicted originally.
How did he get caught?
He got caught because people did begin to talk, but he had a partner named Billy Deacle, and Billy had been a fugitive for about 3 years, and I happened to locate him there in Pensacola, and along with the rest of the narcotics squad, we arrested Billy, and during Billy's trial, it became known that Freddie was Rambo. Then he was arrested because he had already been indicted as well, just under the name Rambo.
The thing that's really the crux of the book is you got to know him on a personal level. I mean, you are going after him as a law enforcement official. You arrest him.
Yes, sir.
Later, you become his friend.
Yes, sir.
And his spiritual mentor. How did that come about?
Well, Freddie made the decision to change his life once he got arrested. He was looking at a life sentence. He cooperated with the investigation and received a 10-year sentence. I talked with him during interviews and stuff and began to build a rapport with him. And he actually was a witness in my very first case when I got hired with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. But from that, he asked if he could call me from prison, and he would call me from time to time. And then as time came for him to get out, he asked if he could come see me, and it just began to build, and he eventually became a confidential source for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, but just strictly because he had so much knowledge of the drug trade. Interviewed numerous times, and I was his handler. But Freddie his life had continued to improve. He had started his own business. He met the love of his life, Sandra, and everything was going great. And then he calls me up and tells me that he's been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I'm a Christian, and I felt compelled by God to assist him in his last walk.
And that's how he came to Christ. You guys built a bond.
We did.
And his life ended on a very positive note of knowing Christ, being able to really, truly repent of things that he had done and make it at peace.
Absolutely.
What a beautiful story.
It's...
You're the most unlikely guy to be his mentor. I mean, the guy that arrests him, and now you're helping him to get to heaven. I mean, you get him in jail, now you get him into heaven. That's a pretty good deal, Ed.
Well, and I have to say, he was the one who actually initiated this relationship, calling me from prison. because he wanted to change his life. And he wanted everybody to know that he had given that up.
It's a beautiful story. I hope it becomes a movie. As the Crow Flies, the redemption of an international drug smuggler. It's available now. For more information, you can check out @Ed Hudson, author, on Facebook. I hope you will.